And very soon, we are going to be launching an education platform that helps them understand what Web3 is. So this is very close to my heart, this one project mainly because, so the idea behind this hackathon was now in terms of the prize money, there's about $100,000.
So today on our podcast, we have Kaavya Prasad, the founder of Lumos Labs in the house. Lumos is building a metaverse for builders and Web3 ecosystem enablers to share opportunities to build and scale up. With a track record for aiding Web3 adoption amongst developer communities with programs since 2018, Lumos Labs has built a strong developer community of 60K developers and is focused on elevating their Web3 journeys. This is the MetaRoy podcast. I am your host, Roy, and I welcome you again to a brand new episode. If you have tuned in for the first time, welcome. And if you have been following us for a while, welcome back and make sure to subscribe to this podcast for any future episodes. Kaavya, thank you so much for joining us. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you today on this podcast. How is it going?
Thanks so much. I'm very happy to be on your podcast and looking forward to this for a while. All's well on my end. How are you doing?
Doing great, Kaavya. Thank you for asking. So, Kaavya, let's start with understanding your background, your past experiences, your career journey, and how did you kind of move into the Web3 space?
Right. Cool. This is a pretty interesting turnaround for me in my life as well, right? I never thought I'd be where I am right now with respect to what I studied in the past, right? So I graduated as an architect and, worked as an architect for a couple of years. So as my, core skill set or my forte, I would always say it is design even now. And that's something that I'm super passionate about. And my entire career started out as an architect. And after a year of working as an architect, I realized that that wasn't my cup of tea. And what you study in college, and the kind of buildings you get to build in college and what you do in reality are drastically different, right? Your creative freedom is kind of constricted, and you have to listen to the client, listen to what they need and what they require. And on top of that, we have things like Vastu that come into the picture, and you kind of feel very, um, what do you say, like pushed into one box and not being able to like think out of the box. So the reason I wanted to move out of architecture was that the same thing, right? So I wanted to think out of the box. I wanted more creative freedom, and I wanted to design bigger things. So I kind of transitioned into becoming a graphic designer, after which worked at a couple of startups there, got more freedom than I did as an architect. But after which I got into products. Products were very interesting for me, and I started building UI for different websites. I started, getting into user experience, UX design, and that was always very interesting for me. And with working in startups, you always get to explore beyond your horizons. You don't, stick to one job that you have, and because of which I got the opportunity to explore all of these avenues and get into product design as well, right? So while I was doing this, I got married, and my husband and I, we decided to sort of start up on our own, right? Run a freelance business, because we had very complementary skill sets. So he's a marketer, a content writer, while I was a designer, and it kind of made sense for us to kind of get together and do this. So we started freelancing for a couple of years. This was back in 2016. And while we were freelancing, we stumbled upon a couple of ICO projects back in the day, back in 2017, when ICO was a big boom that time. So at that time, we decided, okay, this is a very interesting space. We've never heard of what blockchain is, what Bitcoin is. Let's kind of dig deeper, figure out what's going on there. And we decided, okay, let's help these ICO companies build their presence, right? With marketing, with PR, with community building digitally, etc. So that's how we kind of took our first step into blockchain. It was the two of us kind of working together. Things went off really well. There was one ICO project that did immensely well, raised about 40 million at the time. And after which, people started realizing that, hey, these guys have done some good work. Let's explore this more and see how we can work with these guys. And we worked with a couple of ICO projects at the time. And that's when, we got paid in Bitcoin, and we kind of got into this wormhole that is blockchain and Web3 right now. So things were going really well. And after a point, the two of us couldn't handle what we were doing. And that's when we decided to start a company, build a team around it, and that's how Lumos Labs was essentially incepted, right? So it started off as a marketing PR company of sorts, but while we dug deeper into the technology and looked into the challenges that blockchain had, one of the biggest problems was that there wasn't enough engineers in a engineering movement like blockchain, right? Everyone spoke about cryptocurrencies, everyone spoke about trading, but for us to get to the next level, we need good engineers building innovative products, and that is the problem that we wanted to kind of focus on and dig deeper on. And that's how the innovation management company bit started, where we started running different developer engagement programs for different protocols, and that's what we've been doing. And in the last year, we decided to productize what we did in a way, and that's how the Lumos metaverse was incepted.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting journey from architecture to products to founding your own company and now kind of architecting the metaverse, right? If I have to put it
Yes.
in words, right? So, what was the most interesting part of this journey?
I would still say design is like my favorite part, but what was interesting to see is someone from a completely non-technical background learning tech, right? So I'm not a voracious coder, but I can code. And this is something that I've been doing on the side because for me to evangelize technology to developers who are coding day in and day out, I need to know at least the basics, right? I can't be someone who doesn't code and says, hey, you guys need to build on this chain. So that I think was the most challenging and the most interesting part for me, where I've kind of taken courses up. I'm learning how to deploy a smart contract. I'm learning how the metaverse tech stack works, all of that, and it's just a never-ending learning journey. But it's a lot of fun for me.
Absolutely. You mentioned you started developing yourself, and so you're becoming more and more aware. And obviously, you have been running developer communities by yourself, right? So, what are the challenges that you have seen? And you kind of touched about it, but can you go deeper into the challenges of the Web3 development ecosystem in India? And let's say, in terms of whatever it may be, in terms of skill sets, tools, infrastructure, what are the challenges that currently exist?
Right. Interesting question and a very long answer for this, right? But I'll try to break it down into, number of challenges. So one main thing which I already touched upon is scarcity of developers. Back in 2018, when we started, the gap was a lot larger. But in the last couple of years, we have seen a lot of developers taking interest in the technology and building, right? There are a couple of misconceptions when it comes down to, people contributing to the blockchain ecosystem. One of the main things being, oh, I need to know smart contract development or I need to know Solidity to contribute to this ecosystem. But that's not true. You can be a front end developer, you can be a back end developer and still contribute because applications need these skill sets regardless, right? But if you want to now build infrastructure projects, then yes, you do not need to know Solidity. You do need to know Rust and to build on different chains and build smart contracts that do a particular function. But if you are looking to contribute to the space, regardless, anyone with technology or coding experience can start contributing right away, and not just devs, right? Even non-technical folks can contribute. There's a huge array of designers who can come in. There's a huge UX problem in the space that can be solved by designers and UX folks, right? So there are a lot of things you can do without having to dig deeper and actually learn the technology. And that's something that I've been emphasizing on everywhere I go, that, you know, don't hold yourself back because you don't know smart contract development. Start with whatever you know, right? There is backend, there is front end. So Node.js, get into backend development. React UI, every other front end interface is built on React right now, and you can definitely start building something there. And you always have a team that can build the stuff that you don't have expertise in, right? So that is the one of the biggest misconceptions and biggest challenge, which is scarcity of devs. The second thing we've noticed, and one of the reasons why we wanted to build our metaverse, is that the personas of developers are very scattered right now. And this has happened since Web 2, right? We have GitHub, where a lot of developers have their repositories and their pet projects and hack projects kind of put in there. We have platforms that are, hackathon tools like a dev post, dev folio, where all of the developers' hackathon winnings are showcased. And then there are bounty platforms like Gitcoin, where people who solve for these bounties are winning. But all of this is so scattered that there's no one place where, say, organization that is hiring or organization that wants to work with a developer can see that this person has worked in all of these places but has also built all of these projects and has also contributed to these chains, and that one persona is missing, and it gets a lot more easier when you can see everything that a developer has done, to be able to hire them or work with them in the right way, right? So that is one of the another big challenge that we are seeing, and building that unified developer persona can really solve for that. And then putting it on chain is even better, because then it's verified, immutable, and you can't really mess up with the resumes, and there is a lot of resume fraud going on out there. The third problem is communities, and where communities are built, right? Again, super scattered. Every chain has its own community. An ecosystem probably built out on Discord, on their websites, etc. Seeing that blockchain is multi-chain, but yet, developers want to build on any chain that is innovative or poses a challenge to them, right? And they like overcoming those sort of things. The idea is to build that shared community of developers that the chains can essentially access and work with, right? As opposed to building like an exclusive community for each chain. Because at the end of the day, products are using multiple chains, most products are interoperable, and everyone's building for every ecosystem. So why should we build exclusive communities for each ecosystem, right? That was another challenge. How do you build that shared community of tech talent that the entire ecosystem can use? The fourth is the entire journey of a developer is catered to in different platforms. For hackathons, you have different platforms. For hiring, you have different platforms. For community building, you have different platforms. But to cater to a developer end to end and having them actually learn, earn, collaborate, build their network within one platform is very important, and that's something that hasn't been built out. And one of the main reasons is because building that in a 2D like world, right, or a 2D interface gets super hard. You have multiple tabs that a developer has to go through before they get to the end point. When you want to cater to one problem, catering to another would mean that you need to build another product altogether, because that's how complicated the user journey becomes. Now, with a platform like a metaverse, where you're mimicking the real world in a virtual setting, right? It becomes a lot more easier for a developer to kind of go through their journey as they would in the real world. I want to learn, I go into a learning hub. I want to find a job, I go to a company's building, speak to the representative, and find out what opportunities they have. So categorizing all of these things that a developer's journey entails becomes super easy in a metaverse like setting. And that's what we want to cater to as well, right? Because we know that every aspect of this is important. To get more developers in, we need to educate them and get them to learn, to build a community, and for the developers to take the next step after learning, it's for them to speak to other developers, speak to more experienced guys, and up their profile. All of that happening in one platform will be so much more powerful than it happening on several platforms, where community building has to start from scratch, from zero, and over again you'll have to market all of this, right? So that's another big challenge that we've seen. But that apart, I think in terms of new developers entering the space, as you had asked, there are a lot of learning platforms, but I see mostly chain specific content going out there, right? There isn't enough 101 communication happening. What is blockchain? What is Web 1? What is Web 2? What is Web 3? And that's something that we are trying to solve. That apart, also like getting into the grassroots of it, right? Colleges should ideally have a curriculum for blockchain, right? At least the basics, so developers can start there and then dip their toes and start learning online, because they do need a little bit of a push to get started. So setting up these tech clubs within colleges is something that is super necessary, which isn't happening. There are a lot of organizations that are trying to do it, but scaling that is hard, and that's another big challenge that we do see in the space. But yeah, that's basically it. I think I've covered quite a few challenges in the time that I spoke.
And you kind of covered a few questions also that I had in mind, but uh,
Okay.
let's take it one by one. So essentially, if I have to put it in words, it would be like a single profile or a single unified, a record of a developer of what contributions has he done in the Web3 space, what skill sets they might have had, what communities that he is part of, and what chains he is comfortable with, right? So I think that unified profile kind of gives even people who are looking for that skill sets, I think it gives them easy access to understanding that profile of the developer and how they fit in the team. So I think that is a great work that you're doing. The other great stuff is, you're going not just to developers but also to colleges and kind of helping drive adoption there, because I think that is where the lack of, the colleges curriculum does not get adopted as fast as the Web3 space does, right? So it is something that you're kind of trying to build and get these people to adopt, and I think that's where the bulk of skill sets and talent will also come into the picture, right? So I'm amazed about the work that you're doing so far. And I kind of understand the vision and mission also of Lumos Labs better. So can you talk about some initiatives? I know you are doing a hackathon next, BUIDL for Web3. Can you talk about that? What is the hackathon about, and what is the
For
thing
sure.
that you're trying to address?
For sure. So currently, we're building the product in parallel, right, and building a community at the same time. Because as a lot of people in Web3 say, community comes first, and your community essentially runs your product eventually. So the idea is to, while building the product, also build a community. And how do we do that, right? It is by engaging them and building that one vision that the community needs. And right now, our community is obviously filled with developers, and what they want is more opportunities to learn, to earn, to experiment, to kind of see, or push the limits that they can with the technology. So with that, we wanted to help cater to all the sets that we have, right? We have beginners who are just learning about the technology, and very soon we are going to be launching an education platform that helps them understand what Web3 is in a theoretical way, and all the way up to learning how to code or how to learn Solidity and deploy smart contracts, etc. Right? So we are going to launch that for the beginners, so they can take their first step in and then decide what they want to do in the space. For intermediate and advanced folks who are already building in Web3, we've launched a hackathon very recently on the 1st of September. We're already at 1,030 registrations, which is pretty cool. And we're already seeing a lot of people ideating on interesting hack projects. So the idea behind this hackathon was, so since 2018, we've been running hackathons, and this isn't new to us. Running a hackathon is something that we've done in the past, but we've always done it as a chain-specific hackathon where we ask developers to learn only that chain and build and integrate with that chain, right? But we've come to realize over the last couple of years that developers are like having freedom. They want to build on a chain that's right for their product. They don't want to be pushed to a corner and saying that you have to build on this one chain and that's the only way you can win prizes. And the idea behind this hackathon was the same, that we have a multi chain hackathon where we have everybody coming in, putting in a grant pool, and telling the developers you build on what's right for you, right? As opposed to you having to build on one chain and kind of constricting them. The developers have taken this in a very good way. They're very happy that they get to experiment with different tools. They get to even build interoperable solutions and probably try to get some money from each of the prize pools, and the freedom is limitless. So the idea behind this was that the world is going to be multi-chain, and we wanted to essentially bring all the chains together to get the developers that are interested in building on their chain to the forefront. Now, in terms of the prize money, there's about $100,000 pool across all the partners that we've gotten on board. That apart, we also have a small prize pool for projects that want to take it to the next level, right? That want to become startups. So we have partnered with a company called Builders Tribe, who is now run by my co-founder, who I started with. So they are essentially giving up to 25K grants, equity free, for hack projects that want to take it to the next level and become a startup. So we want to kind of help them again through the entire journey. So if you're a beginner, we have a small price pool for beginners. If you're intermediate, for them as well, and as well as advanced, we have separate tracks for each chain. And we also have open innovation tracks where if you want to explore any other dev tool or company that we haven't onboarded into the hackathon, you're free to explore that, and we will give you prize amounts for that as well. So we're trying to give the power to the developers with this hackathon.
Awesome, awesome. And I spoke to Pareen also recently. So I think great work with Builders Type that you're doing as well. So my next question is around the overall multi-chain aspect of it, right? How difficult it is even sticking to one chain is kind of difficult for developers to get used to. How difficult it is for them to get used to the multi-chain ecosystem that you're kind of trying to promote?
For sure. I mean, interesting question, right? So, right now there are a lot of chains that are building bridges that make it very easy for developers to actually like connect one chain to another. So, if they're already in the space and they've been building for the while, this is not going to be hard, right? And for beginners, we would suggest, they not, explore multi-chain, but rather build on one chain and try to get that product right for that chain. After which they can probably explore other chains through grant programs that those chains already have running in parallel. But in terms of a challenge, I wouldn't say it's a challenge per se. It's more about their understanding of the ecosystems and what tooling they have that they can use to build on different chains. So it's completely on how much research they do and how much they know about the ecosystem. We have partnered with a couple of these interoperable chain layers as well. So if you want to explore, protocol is one of them, for example. So they can essentially build on that and connect it to several chains that they're already a part of. Same with Tatum. They have 40 plus blockchains under their hood. And what they need to do is just build on Tatum and see, how they can connect with which a platform works for which application that they're building on. So there are a lot of tools that make it easy for developers to go multi-chain for sure.
Got it, got it. And speaking of hackathons, you've been organizing so many. What is the most innovative project that you have kind of seen being developed from a hackathon?
Funny question. There are so many that I did, so I'm not even able to
Your top
recollect them.
three, if you
But
if you will.
yeah, so this is very close to my heart, this one project mainly because they were a part of our very first hackathon back in 2018. They're called Hypersign, and what they were essentially doing is building a decentralized identity management solution back then, right? Ever since then, they participated in one of our accelerator programs as well that we ran for Eternity, won that, and are now a full-fledged startup with a token launched as well. And the reason it's close to my heart is because I have seen them from the stage at which they were incepted all the way up to now when they have several investors, and they send out investor updates. And I personally have invested in them as well. And they're doing some stellar work. And right now they have a whole suite of products that they've launched as well. So that's one of the projects that come to my mind. That apart, there was something very innovative that I saw in I think the Filecoin hackathon that we ran, which is essentially a metaverse project. So they are basically trying to build a synthetics version of a person in the metaverse. So building an avatar through AI, right? Where you upload a photograph and then there's a very real life like version of you as an avatar. And this avatar then can be is NFTized and can be sold, and some people can buy the rights to it, and then the ownership goes to them, and they get to use this avatar in the way they want to. So think of celebrities doing this and selling this and getting royalties for every time their avatar is used in anything, right? And we also have these very interesting virtual pop stars coming up in the metaverse. They don't exist in reality, but they do exist virtually. So these sort of use cases become super interesting. And since I usually do deep dive into metaverses, this one kind of stuck out to me, and I thought it was a very interesting solution. And they built this out in the span of what, 3 months. So it's incredible at the rate at which this sort of technology is kind of going towards.
That's absolutely right. And I think these are really interesting use cases, in my opinion. If you're listening to this or you're watching this, please go and participate in the hackathon that has been organized. The links are in the description below. You can check out and you can earn a grant for $100,000, as Kavya mentioned. So make sure you check that hackathon. If you have a team, go and participate and say hi from the Metaroy podcast if you can. Can you talk about the team behind building Lumos Labs? Can you talk about how you kind of built it and what was the team behind it?
Yes, and this is my favorite question because I couldn't have done this without them, right? So, as I mentioned, when we were freelancing, we got to a point where we weren't able to handle the workload, and that's how the team building began. So, when we started off initially, our team was filled with friends, right? Like people we knew from the past. So, my husband, also my co-founder back then, he worked at a company called Hacker Earth, which is essentially a company that caters to developers again, right? It is a development assessment platform. So it made sense for us to have people who've done this in the past, right? Even though it isn't for blockchain, but it is the developer community at the end, to come on board. So it started with friends, and there was a friend of mine whose girlfriend was a writer, and we got her on board, and she's still with us, right? So the way we kind of built our team was very personal, and I feel like that's why our team is still very, very close. Even though we're at 30 people right now, we are a very close knit team, and it feels like a bunch of friends working every day, right? It doesn't feel like you're doing a job. Rather, you're hanging out with friends and doing something productive and adding value to the ecosystem every day. So from there, we sort of started expanding, and obviously, we didn't know 30 people that we could onboard one after the other, unfortunately. So we did, like build a team for PR, and Susan, and she's kind of held the PR arm really well. We got a sales head on board back in 2018, because that time we were a services based company, and we were a sales driven organization, and we needed someone to lead that side. And now we have a 4 member sales team, and we also have a huge design team right now, because for a metaverse we need to be stellar with design, and we need to really like come up with the next generation of design standards. And we have a great design team behind all of this, and a 3D team as well, that's building out the 3D world itself, and of course a tech team. So the funny thing is, for us, even though metaverse is with the Web3 integration is all about the technology, we are mostly building out our product through a community, right? Rather than having a whole tech team in house. And which I think is the way to go in Web3, because when you're building such a huge community of developers, why not have them contribute to this ecosystem, right? They all like to know about new technologies. They all want to dabble in this, and handing this over to them and telling, building a standard and then telling them to take it forward is the way that we want to build our company as well. And of course, we do have a small tech team on board that is building day in and day out. But with that, we also have a huge community of developers that keep contributing to this, and that's the way I would like to scale this as well, right? That apart, I mean, the team is, as I mentioned, 30 strong right now, and we are growing even now, even in the bear market, and not much has stopped there. And yeah, if anybody is looking out for an opportunity, please feel free to reach out to me, because we would love to talk to anyone who has core skill sets, has intent in building, building a recognition in this space, and wants to just add value to this ecosystem.
Absolutely. And I think I should count myself as one of them. But speaking of skill sets, particularly, but what are the kind of skill sets? And this is from a non technical perspective, because you understand that side of it as well. So, what are the skill sets that you're kind of looking for? And even the overall ecosystem is kind of looking for in the Web3 space?
Yeah, sure. So you'd find this very interesting, but from 2018 till early mid 2021, we were a team of no coders, and we were able to pull off so many hackathons for platform companies, right? By just understanding the technology. But our team consisted of content writers, consisted of designers, consisted of marketers, PR folks, and salespeople. So everybody that works in a Web2 organization can also work in a Web3 organization, because apart from the product and the tech, you do have a whole other side of things that you need to do, right? Like building a community, marketing what you do, growing the product. So you need people in product growth as well. So I would say everything that Web2 has plus the tech is what Web3 has. So anybody who's a marketer, who's a product a manager, who's a writer, a designer, an NFT artist, everybody gets to explore the space, because everyone has a space in here, right? So apart from technical perspective, I would say non-technical is the same as any other organization, and we need them as much as we need the tech folks.
So if you're looking for a job, we'll leave the link for reaching out to Lumos Labs platform in the description below. So feel free to check that out as well. And Kavya, one more question on the same thread itself. When people are moving from the Web 2 to the Web 3 space, what are the resources that they should kind of understand before they even kind of want to move their careers? And what are the, I would say, people say that people only sleep for 3 hours in Web3, right? Because that's why it's called Web3, right? So it's a continuous growing space, right? So what are the things that experienced professionals should understand before they want to move their careers into the Web3 space?
So this would be for people who are already working, and I can go both with tech and non-tech, right? For
Yeah, yeah,
tech
that
folks,
should be
it's
great.
pretty simple. Start coding, right? Like start learning. You know JavaScript, you're already halfway there because Solidity is basically a subset of that. So there are so many platforms. Some are paid, and I would suggest don't go for them because there are so many learn-to-earn platforms. They incentivize you for learning. Now, what can be better than that, right? You're getting paid to learn. So I would say for tech folks, start learning. Go to one of these learn to earn platforms. There is Build Space, there's Web3 University, there's Learn Web3 DAO. There are so many platforms out there that will help you. For non tech folks, I would say understanding the tech is important. You don't have to code, right? So you can start with like reading the Bitcoin white paper,
White paper.
understanding how Ethereum works, because Bitcoin kind of gets you to understand the decentralization aspect and the proof of work consensus that they have. But Ethereum is where the smart contracting layer comes in. You can build decentralized applications on top of, and that's where majority of their work would entail. So I would say kind of understanding the basics of the technology and then getting into what's happening in the ecosystem in terms of what they know, right? If, say, they are a marketer, how do you market in Web3? And there are nuances to that. It's not the same as Web2. As a designer, what are the trending designs that are going around right now in the NFT space or in the design space, right? That's something that I would say, you should kind of follow the right kind of people and look at what's happening in that space. So keeping up with the space is really hard. As you said, people sleep only 3 hours a day. So move, like you take a weekend off and there's so much that's happened in that weekend, right? And you can't really keep up. So that's one of the main things, keeping up with the space and joining these communities, right? Like I mentioned. So there are many communities that support beginners with, what they need to do in Web3. And those sort of communities really help you enhance what you know. Everyone is very friendly in the space. So asking questions and getting an answer is not unheard of. Everybody wants to DM you and talk about Web3. Everyone's very enthusiastic. So it's all about, your intent and how you want to start off, right? And what is it that you want to do in the space? So I would say it's joining a community, reading up a little bit about the tech itself, and understanding the expanse of it, right? Like what are the applications and what else you can do in the space. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and I would categorize it as something you should do when you're starting anything. It would be the same case here as
Great, great. And I think the first community that people should join is the Lumos Labs community on Discord.
well.
I've been a
Definitely.
part of that, and it's a very active and a very thriving community. People are ready to support you with any questions that you have. So I would leave the link for that as well in the description, so you can go and check that out and say hi from the Metaroy podcast again. Kavya, speaking of Ethereum, what are your thoughts? And this is, since you are closely involved with developers, what are their thoughts also on the upcoming Ethereum merge?
So there was a POW consensus chain that existed, and now there is a POS chain, and now they're merging the two and making this completely POS, right? One of the main reasons for this is to increase the transactions. Number of transactions within the ecosystem, so to scale Ethereum overall, right? Lesser gas fees, making it more economically friendly, consumption of lesser energy, more decentralization, better security, and all of that. But one of the main questions, and this is something that I haven't been able to answer as well, and I'd like to put it out there, right? If there are interesting comments that come out, is what happens to the miners when the chain moves to POS, right? Sure, they can stake the tokens that they've mined so far in the ecosystem, but people have like overall, I read a tweet that there was about 700 odd million earned through miners alone in the proof of work algorithm that they had. Now, with proof of stake, what happens to these miners, right? That is a question, and that's something that a lot of developers have asked me. Like, I've been mining now. What happens to me next, right? Like, I can stake these tokens, but I'll have to. There is a huge fee for that as well. So that is something that. I've been trying to solve myself, and if there are any interesting comments, let me know. I would like to know the answer for this as well. But this is one of the unanswered questions. But very excited for the merge because overall, it is definitely an evolution, and we always want to see progress. And this has been a long overdue, honestly, because I've been hearing talks of this since 2017, and finally, we are about 5 or 6 days away from the merge. Fingers crossed it actually happens this time.
Absolutely. I think it's been a long time coming, about 7 years since we are hearing about the merge, and finally we are seeing it happen right in front. So, and it's a big change in the crypto and the Web3 space, right? So, really excited for it. And people who have more thoughts on it, please feel free to share your comments on our podcast as well. Kavya, my final question is: what do you envision for the Web3 industry in India? Like, what are the challenges that currently the industry is facing? And so, when they're shifting their careers, what are the avenues for them that are available for them? What are kind of some industry sectors that are kind of building actively in this space? Can you throw some light around that as well?
For sure. In terms of like the Indian ecosystem, I think it's as vibrant as it can be, especially considering the market right now. I was there for the bear market that happened back in 2018, 2019, and we saw a huge dip in people in the space, right? Everyone from developers, even retail investors, everyone had kind of gone silent, and nobody thought things would pick up again and this would go back to how vibrant it is. But this time around, I guess people have realized that this is part of the cycle, right? There is a downturn and then there will be a upturn again in the market, and people, including builders, haven't stopped building. And honestly, bear market is the right time to build, and because of which I do think that India in particular, because of the pure number of developers that we have and pure number of engineers we have, there are some really good projects that are coming out on a daily basis. And I know this because I have some alpha on Builders Tribe and what's happening there, right? And the kind of startups that are coming. I may not be able to share everything, but I do know that there are at least three new startups that come up every other day, reaching out saying, I want to take my project further. I want to find funding. Can you connect me to VCs? So, and also the sheer number of hackathons that are running, right? There are so many chain specific hackathons that launch every other month. And then we have, multi-chain hackathons like ours. All of this shows that, building hasn't stopped, and this ecosystem is only going to grow, right? Um, that apart, in terms of the challenges, I would say one of the biggest challenges in India is the regulatory uncertainty. And this is something that I don't have the answer to, and we will only have to wait and watch. But this is something that definitely poses a doubt in most people that are entering the space, that are new to it, right? And including people that are a little on the next generation from us, like my dad, who is still very skeptical of the space, mainly because of how what the news says about cryptos or about blockchain in general. That apart, I think this is a universal problem, but again, privacy in blockchain is something that is of concern, right? With whatever happened with Tornado Cash. So, is too much privacy, which is what Web3 is trying to do, a good thing? Because that does attract malicious players. And of course, it is up to the person and their ethics that, they need to decide what is good, what is bad, and do the right thing. But we do need to find a middle ground here. And again, this is an unanswered question, but definitely a very big challenge, that having a solution that is too private may lead to malicious players coming in. Now, making it too transparent means that the user's data is all out there, which again poses a problem or a challenge for privacy, right? I don't want my phone number in the hands of everybody, right? So these are a couple of challenges that I have been seeing in the space that are unsolved for, and we do need to wait and watch, what happens on that front, and hopefully there are regulations that come in for all of this.
Got it. Got it. Kavya, thank you so much for sharing these insights with us. What is the best way that our audience can connect with you and Lumos Labs online? Can you let us know and take it away? The next 30 seconds are completely yours.
Yeah, for sure. So the way you can reach out to me is honestly everywhere. I am available on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Discord, except for my phone number. I do not share that, but everywhere else. So feel free to reach out to me, and I'll share the links with you so you can add it in the discussion. That apart, Lumos Labs has its own Discord. So anybody who's interested in the tech doesn't have to be a developer. Even if you're interested, come in, converse with the community. We have some really experienced developers. We have experts on board. We have this hackathon running, and we have our community team that is always there to support and help with any sort of question. And there are no stupid questions, right? If you want to ask us how blockchain works, we are happy to tell you how that works too. So you can follow us on Twitter, reach out to us on Discord, and we'll be there to help you all out.
Absolutely. And all of Kavya's social handles and the links to the Lumos Labs community, all the links should be in the description below. So go and check that out. On that note, Kavya, thank you so much for speaking with us today. It was great learning about your background, your journey, your amazing journey, actually, and about all of these insights into the Web3 space, building careers, and how this is going to be especially useful for both freshers who are kind of looking to build products or just code or kind of trying to build their development career, and even for experienced professionals even from the non-tech industry as well who want to migrate their career journeys into the Web3 industry. So thank you for sharing these insights with our audience, and I wish you all the best with the future endeavors. And I especially appreciate your efforts in working towards driving adoption for the Web3 industry. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I had a lot of fun having this conversation with you.
If you haven't subscribed to the Metara podcast yet, go down and subscribe below, tap that subscribe button, and like and share and comment on this video and let me know how it was. I would love to hear our comments and respond to them personally. Thank you.